Yeah. So, I read a little bit about you in your bio, but let's just hear, from you a little bit about, how you got started in running and what that was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was always really active in high school. I played football, basketball, baseball. In college, I was pretty active as well. I did lifted weights, still played recreationally. And then right after that, got a really high stress job after I graduated. I was on call on the weekends during the week. Made it really difficult to do kind of active things or join teams or any of that stuff. And so just slowly got out of shape, and it was kind of progressive. And I finally was like, man, I'm a little out of whack here. Right about that time, we're actually at my job. I had a buddy that was running quite a bit, kind of in the mornings or on the weekends, and finding time to do it. And he was like, you should just run a 5K. And I was like, a 5K? I'm like, I can totally run a 5K, no problem. I was active. Like I just still had this mentality of like, oh, I'm still this athlete that I used to be. So we trained a couple of times before the race, and then went out there, and it was somewhat humbling and embarrassing. I was out of breath almost immediately. I was getting passed by everybody. I couldn't believe just how far I'd let myself go. And so during that race, I was just like, this is crazy. I'm 30. I should be in great shape still. I've got plenty of life left, and I wasn't. And so by the time I got done with that, I just had made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to let myself keep sliding down that path. And so I didn't know what that meant or what to do, but I was like, I'm going to keep running. Like I think that's a good activity. I should be able to do a 5K. So why not keep working towards that and seeing if I can improve my time? And so luckily I had this buddy who encouraged me to kind of keep going. He had been running like half marathons, which just seemed inconceivable to me at that time after having experienced a 5K like I did. But signed up for more races, got stuff on the calendar, started trying to train. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I know I just got to go out there and try to run faster. And so that's all I did for the next, I don't know, year or so. I would join a 5K. I would do a little bit better, and progressively I started getting into a little bit better shape. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll try a 10K. I was like, 5K times getting down. I was losing some weight. I was feeling better. It made me want to eat better. And so it was kind of this just progressive thing. So finally did a 10K. That went pretty well. Did a few of those. And then my buddy moved away, went to Nashville, and he was like, you should come down here and do this rock and roll half marathon in Nashville. It was like, there's going to be bands and it's going to be a good time. We're going to eat and drink and do whatever. I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. So I went down there, ran this half marathon. And right at the end of the half marathon, the marathoners were getting ready to do like their kind of second loop. You could see them kind of going back out for the second piece of that. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, there's no way ever that I would do that. I'm like exhausted. If anybody's ever done that half marathon, it's like there's a lot of hills, and it was definitely challenging. But it kind of got in my head, like, man, there's people that do this, and it was such a like a positive community, all the way from these 5Ks to 10Ks to this half marathon. Everybody was just up and at 'em and ready to go. And I was like, this is what I need in my life. This positivity, this encouragement, all of that stuff was so good. And so after a little while, I started getting in my head like I could maybe try a marathon. And around that same time, I had a couple of my cousins were like, yeah, we should totally sign up. So we kind of signed up on a whim, did the Grand Rapids, Michigan kind of marathon, finished it. Was like, that was pretty amazing. Never want to do it again. I was sore, everything hurt. I was just like, that was great. But just like so many other people, after a little while, you kind of forget how bad that pain was. And we're like, oh, I could totally do it again. So did a few more of those, and then one of my same cousins was like, we should do an ultra marathon, which was kind of funny to me thinking back to kind of where I started. But I was like, okay, it was like 33 miles, and we did it. We finished it, and I was like, man, I'm an ultra marathoner now. This is crazy. So from there, it kind of just progressively kept going. I got a running coach. It was actually a Canadian guy that I met, Darren Weldrick, who runs a big kind of running group there, and that helped. He helped kind of get me ready for some of these longer runs. And then I started trail running, and that kind of changed my life from that standpoint. And so I kind of got off the roads and into trails. And those guys were doing 100-mile runs, 50-mile runs. And so encouraged me to like, you can keep going farther. Like you don't have to stop. And I just kind of felt physically better as time progressed. It was definitely got into better shape. And now all of a sudden that seemed feasible. And so I've done several 50-mile runs since then, and some of the adventure runs that you referenced kind of in the beginning. So it's been an exciting kind of journey of kind of self-discovery. And after, what do I do after college? How do I stay in shape? What do I do next? And finding some passion and direction in my life was a good thing.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing your story, Zach. And, I can relate to a lot of what you said, probably up to the half marathon point. Probably nothing after that, but we'll certainly talk about all of it. But I appreciate what you said. Some of the things that you shared, the first is your friend first getting you into it, some time ago. I love that you mentioned that, because that is a common way for someone to get into running, in a very influential way, is to see someone who you're close to, you have a connection to, say, hey, let's go do this race or come to the gym with me. So I love that happened for you. And I also appreciate, what you said about, not exercising and just kind of getting really kind of drawn into your work. And it happens over time, it's not overnight, but you could easily kind of get out of shape, and whatever that means, right? If you're not eating
Yeah.
healthy, or whatever that means for you, and then making that commitment to make a change. And that's the part of it that is truly inspiring, is that you could recognize that things have changed for you, probably not in a positive way, but to make that commitment to yourself that you want to make a change in a positive way. So hats off to you for that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a progressive thing, both good and bad. Nothing happens overnight. The bad doesn't happen overnight, and the good doesn't happen overnight. So, making a commitment to yourself is really important.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I had a similar experience a few years ago. So my story is, runner in high school, track, cross country, didn't run after high school. Just got started with life, college, kids, career, kind of all at the same time.
Right.
And then just a few years ago, I kind of found myself kind of in that corporate, like, travel a lot, probably very unhealthy diet, and not really taking care of myself. And then at some point, it's the same kind of thing, like, oh, I need to get active again, but not really doing much other than periodically going to the gym or periodically running, a 5K race. And then for me, it wasn't until getting into obstacle course races where I'm like, this is something I can do, and this is something I
Yeah.
want to do. And I think this is going to help me, just personally kind of grow. So that was kind of the turning point for me.
I love that. I mean, there's so many different options out there. It doesn't need to be marathon running. There's obstacle courses. There's these adventure races where you're doing all kinds of other activities, canoeing and biking and all that stuff. I mean, just find something that works. It doesn't need to be a particular thing. It just needs to be something. So just find that something for you, I think, is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, kind of thinking about the obstacle course races, there is, so the ones that I did were Spartan races, and they have three levels. They call Spartan Sprint, Spartan Super, and Spartan Beast. And the Beast is equivalent to a half marathon plus a certain number of obstacles. So I'm kind of chuckling as you're talking about, hey, you finished your half marathon and you see the runners going out for their second loop for the full marathon. That's exactly my thought when I'm finishing the Beast, and I'm thinking about all the folks who are doing the Ultra, the Spartan Ultra, which is, that distance. So until you get there, it just feels like super far away, probably farther away than it really is for you to get to that point.
Totally agree. Yeah, everybody's kind of on their own timeline as far as that stuff goes. But yeah, I mean, it really is like just being consistent and showing up. And at some point, you're gonna toe that starting line, and you may or may not be ready. But it's just getting up there and trying it and surprise yourself. I think I've surprised myself several times where I was like, man, this is gonna be hard, or I don't know how I'm gonna finish this, and it's one foot in front of the other.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so tell me about, the things or the ways that running has transformed your life. I'm really, really fascinated by this. I'm, having a lot of conversations with runners who have different experiences, different paths. And one of the things I love about these conversations is to hear about, like, how has it really helped them? And I think, when you think about fitness, you think about running, more than likely the first thing that comes to mind is really just about, like, losing weight or getting fit,
Yeah.
but there's so much more that running provides. So, like, what are the ways that it's helped you? And I know you mentioned about kind of losing weight as well, so that I assume that's part of your story, but share a little bit about, like, the ways that running's helped you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I mean, it was really just a health thing at first, and I had no intention of like, oh, I'll become an ultra marathoner. Like that was not on my radar at all. Really, it wasn't until I was like progressing and reading books and like trying to figure out like where am I going with this that stuff happened. So it was really just starting out with the basic like, yeah, I'm heavy now. What am I doing with my life? Let's try to figure that out. But I think like for the first thing was just having something to train for. And so having a race out there, and I always just had one like, oh, in a couple of months, I've got this race. And so I was always kind of able to back into it to go, okay, I'm doing this race. I don't want to die while I'm doing it. So what are the what are the three things I kind of need to do to get myself prepared? And that really made a big difference for me. And I've done that now for 14 years. I've always just had something out there, and they've gotten bigger and harder, and taking more training and some of that stuff, but having something that you're working towards, I think, is super important. So I would say that's probably number one. Without that, it's like you have these big periods of inactivity, and that consistency is really hard. Trying to find that motivation is really hard. If you have something out there, you can really create that discipline of, okay, I've got to get up, I got to do this run. Here's my plan. I'm big on like lists and checkoffs, and I would lay out my training and go, okay, did I do my thing today or not? And checking that box made a huge difference for me. It was like something as simple as that, like, yes, I did my thing, and then moving out with my day. So I would say that's number one, is just figure out what that thing is that you can work towards. Find some direction that way, and you'll be amazed at what you can do with for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And, you didn't use these words, but I feel like to some extent it's a little bit of sense of accomplishment, right?
For
Even
sure.
before you reach that end goal, it's doing those daily workouts and checking those boxes and kind of doing everything leading up to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's totally it. I think, and it builds on itself. It's like once you're, it's like, oh man, 5K is pretty easy, or 10K is pretty easy. It's like your mindset changes to what that next thing is. Again, I never intended to like, I'm going to do a bunch of these long races, but just it was like, well, what's my next thing that I really want to push myself towards? What's interesting out there that I could do? And that was really helpful over time.
Very cool. Very cool.
I think secondarily to that is just kind of surrounding yourself with good people. I feel like I've done a good job of that over the last, I don't know, 10 years, as I realized like I don't know everything. I don't know what I was doing when I first started. I didn't know how to do any kind of nutrition. I didn't know how to eat right. I didn't know the workouts to do, all that stuff. And so I think finding somebody that can kind of guide you, and at first it was just a friend, but from there I got a running coach, and that was helpful. I was like, oh man, what's a speed workout? What's a hill workout? Like I haven't done these things before, and oh, I should have pace goals. And like over time that really helped. Like, okay, now I can kind of create my own plan because I'm getting this baseline of knowledge. And it's somebody that's going to help push you even on days where you don't feel like doing it. Having that accountability to either a running group or a coach or whoever it might be made a huge difference. And then just seeing what they're doing. I mean, I think a lot of the things that I got into were because these people were doing it, and they're like, oh, well, we need another person to come with us, or why don't you try this thing? And so having people around you that are, you don't set these internal limits that I think is easy to do when you're by yourself, but having this group of people that are like, you could totally do it. You're doing this. And that was just like me. That kind of stuff was ultra motivating for me to like, okay, yeah, like let's try that. Okay. Yeah. I'll do that training. Cause I've always been one to like be willing to push myself, but I just need some direction on how to push. And so that was nice to have some people around. So I would say number two is, find some people that, are kind of interested in what you're interested in, and willing to kind of push you even if you don't want to be pushed.
Yeah, 100% agree. I love what you said about that, surrounding yourself with, with the right people. And, I love to quote sayings, but I never really get them right. But it's something like you're the average of the five people closest to you kind of in your life. So, so you're absolutely right. The quality of those people is really going to determine, your mindset and your actions. Not determined, I would say influence, right? Your
Influence
mindset
for
and your
sure.
actions.
Yeah.
So totally agree with that. And then, in the coach part, completely relate to that. I mean, that's my story 4 years ago when I got into obstacle course races. I did my first race without a coach. I didn't know what I didn't know. And then afterwards, I'm like, I could do this better, but I definitely need help. I need someone to tell me what to do. But I will say that to the coach I have now through Underdog Fitness, who I brought on the show a few times, and, we go on Instagram Live, and we got a great, relationship and partnership. He did more than just told me what to do. He helped push me to do the things that I never thought I could do before. right? Which was the journey I was on. He was that push though to say, yes, you can, right? And here's how we're going to get you there, which has been, tremendous. So I can completely relate to, what you shared there.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that's totally true. Coaches have seen everything under the sun, and I think they can see in you what you can't at first, and I think that's a great part of having somebody that's willing to sit down with you, create a plan, and then help you execute on that plan.
Yeah, and then and I'm sure it's the same with your coach. We've become really good friends, right, over the last 4 years, working together, and it's more than the coaching and the fitness part of it. We've just become really good friends, which is great.
Yeah, that's a side benefit for sure. Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I think the next thing is just the power of saying yes. I think as I was getting into after college and working and kind of getting into this bubble, things kind of closed in a little bit on what I was doing. I was like just had my first child. Like things were kind of slow, and that was okay for a time. But I think you can get stuck in that mentality of I go to work, I come home, I take care of kids, I clean, we do whatever on the weekend, and then it's back to Monday. We get going again. And I think having a coach, finding people that are interested in what you're interested in really helps to kind of get yourself outside of that. And so you start realizing, man, there's other things to do out here too that would be good for me, to push boundaries, to explore, to figure out what the next thing is. Actually, the coach that I had from Canada, he had basically started a big race, this run to Montreal, which is basically a run from Toronto to Montreal, relay style. The first year that I said yes to it, it was 10 people, and it was I think 600 miles or something. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come do that, because I was in the group. I barely got to see everybody else that was in the group, but I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come to Toronto and run with a bunch of Canadian people that I've never met. Sure, that sounds great. So I mean, it like doing that kind of stuff really got me outside of my comfort zone. I was like, oh, we're now in an RV for the next 2 days, but met some great people. It was so hard and it was so rewarding to get that done. And then a few years after that, there was another race that was very similar called the Speed Project, which was a race from the Santa Monica Pier to the Las Vegas sign. But that one had like 20 teams, a lot of international teams. It was only 6 people. You had to run through Death Valley. It was like things that I was like, man, I'm pretty nervous about doing some of this stuff. The running group was super fast, and I've never been that fast when it comes to running. I can endure for a while, but running fast is going to be challenging. So doing that with that group was kind of amazing. And then we did the run to Montreal. I've done that 3 times now, which has been a really cool experience. And then most recently, I think just a couple of years ago, I did R3, which is at the Grand Canyon. You start at one rim, go all the way down, run all the way across, go off the other side, and then come all the way back around. So it was a little over 50 miles and a lot of elevation doing that stuff. But, thinking back to like when I started just trying to get through a 5K, it's just amazing. I feel how far my mentality of, I can figure this out. Yeah, this is scary. Yes, I would normally be really nervous about this, but I've got other people that will do it. Let's say yes. That has made a huge difference in my life, just not just in running, but just in life in general, of just being open. So running's brought that to me, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so first, congratulations on all those scary races and really long races. And I love what you said about, saying yes. And, you touched on a little bit about it's not only about fitness, but it's also in other areas of your life. So it's really wonderful to see kind of the benefits that you're getting here from in your fitness related activities, kind of just in your broader, kind of life.
Yeah, I agree. I think it started with that, and then you want to do better. I'm sure you experience some of the same thing with your racing. You get those things done, you start putting those behind you, and you want to be a better person. You want to make things the best that they can be for your life, and that certainly happened with me. I mean, thinking about habits and how do I progress from here? I think I'd had a bunch of bad habits kind of leading up to this, and I think I've replaced most of them with really positive things. Like I started eating a lot better. I'm plant-based now. I've been that way for 10 years. That was a big change, and lost a ton of weight with that. I think I improved my running, which has been great. I didn't like to get up early. Now I get up early most days. I'm usually up by 5:30, and I go run 6 miles or 10 miles or whatever it might be. On the weekends, a lot longer. I never would have done that leading up to this. So it's just interesting, like over time, that it may have started with running, but it really transforms all these different aspects of your life. And like, I want to be a good dad. I want to have energy. I want to, age well. I want to be healthy. And it all kind of feeds into each other. So it's been a good progression that way.
Very cool. Very cool.
Have you experienced something similar yourself? Just a curiosity.
Yeah, just thinking about, well, I mean, first for you talking about the races, my goal for the races, typically, if I've never done it before, it's really just to finish, right? If I've never done it before, I don't have
Right.
a benchmark. I'm like, I just want to finish it, especially if it's really daunting for me. But then after that, looking to do better and then kind of set a goal that says, okay, well, if I did X, then through some training and some time I could do Y. And then I go into the next race kind of with that mindset of like, how do I do it better than I did before? Not only my time, but also how I'm feeling and how I'm running, and doing all the other things that I should be doing properly, like proper fueling and nutrition and pace and stride and form and all of those things. But yeah, I would say that this has really, my journey in particular, you're talking about how it's helped me in like other parts of my life. So for
Mhm.
me, my journey has been around doing things I've never done before and overcoming fears. So it's, mostly physically related, like, climbing up a rope or doing monkey bars or anything to do with heights,
Yeah,
like mostly that. But it's transferred over into my life, and like, I do hard things in my life. Maybe it's difficult conversations, right? Where I would have avoided in the past. Now I'm kind of leaning into those conversations or situations. So I definitely see this, my journey of doing things I've never done before, doing things that, scare me. I've seen that kind of transfer, in other parts of my life. I will say some of the physical parts, like you talked about getting up at 5:30 in the morning. For me, that's still tough. That's still tough to do. I do get up early in the morning. My body is conditioned to do so, but I'm not entirely as happy about it as you are. So maybe I can learn a little bit from what you're doing there. But yeah, but just other parts, I do feel better. Like I went through this whole period of time, that year after I did my first obstacle course race, where when I got a coach, I was eating better. My one of my goals was not necessarily to lose weight, but to lose body fat,
sure.
and then become stronger and become a faster runner. I was doing all those things that year. Honestly, like right before the pandemic, I was probably in the best shape of my life. And I was sharing my story and I was excited, and that got other people excited. And I don't share that too much on the podcast, but that's actually one of the reasons why I started the podcast, was as a way to share my story, because for some folks, I hope that it is inspiring to them, as well as share stories like yours. So that whole journey is a large part of what led me even to start this community and podcast.
I think that's so great. I mean, pandemic was good for something. It was a challenging time. I feel like, you could either come out of that real bad or better, I think, and you chose better, which is good. And I certainly never enjoy getting up even now, but it's just part of what I got to do to get it done. And so I'm with you. It's hard to wake up, especially in the winter, and put on your stuff and go outside and be cold, dark, and snow on you.
And here we are, like it's right around the corner.
It's
So
coming.
it's coming. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think kind of the last point is just kind of back to being the best version of yourself. I think that I'm all about that now. I think trying to optimize, trying to figure out can I get stronger, faster, better. I'm getting older. I'm going to fight that as hard as I can. So since having the running coach, I don't have him anymore. Now I have a strength coach, and so I've incorporated that into running, trying to be doing pull-ups, push-ups, doing weighted vest stuff. I like that is pretty cool. I'm eating a little bit differently, getting a little bit more protein. That's helped my running. I think that's made me way more durable, so I don't get hurt quite as often. So like anything I can do to try to improve, I'm all about it. So I think that I'm 180 shifted from when I was 30 and now I'm 44. And I think I'm a better person. I'm going to keep trying to figure out the best way to do that, kind of not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, and just in general with my family and everything else. So it's a process that I'm still trying to figure out, but I want to be better. I want to do the best I can every day that I'm alive.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, Zach, for sharing, your 5 ways that, running has really transformed your life. And I love to see how, it had the benefits for you physically, but also in other areas of your life, just kind of as we talked about. And I have some shared experiences there as well. So, I love to hear from you, throughout your journey, what would you say was probably the most difficult thing that you had to obstacle that you had to overcome, and how'd you do it?
Yeah, I think similar to you, like I travel a lot for work. I travel a little less since the pandemic, but trying to fit in some of this training, being on airplanes, having late dinners. So trying to just figure out kind of with the calendar and trying to puzzle in the workouts has always been a challenge. So now I'm doing a little less of that, which makes things a heck of a lot easier. But sometimes it would be that really late night run, and I would not want to do that after a big dinner or something like that. But I would be like, I got to get it in. Like, where else am I going to put it? And so it created like a really good set of discipline for myself to know, I'll do it no matter what. Like, okay, I don't get done till 12:30 at night. I guess that's what it's going to take. And I'm just willing to do that if I know I've got some big thing that I'm working towards because I want to do that well. And so I just don't give myself a lot of excuses. But that took time to develop. There was plenty of times where I skipped runs where I'm like, oh, it's so cold out there, I don't want to do it. I really don't do that anymore. Like if something's on the schedule, I'm going to get it done one way or another. I'm going to fit it in. And so that was probably like the most difficult. But now I think I'm over that piece of it, and I think that makes all the difference. I think being consistent makes everything much simpler in your life if you're willing to just go out and do what you say you're going to do. And so I'm going to try to keep that up.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. I mean, travel for me, I still haven't really figured it out. I'm getting better, but I still haven't really figured it out. Like you said, early starts, late dinners. It's just being on an airplane. It's just really hard. So I've been fortunate for, the last 3 years. I haven't traveled as much as I did previously, but it's all coming back. Right. So now I've got to kind of figure this out. But one area, I agree with you. One area that I said I would never do would be run in inclement weather, right? Especially in the winter. I'm not running outdoors. I'm going to run on a treadmill, and I don't want to have anything to do with that. But, things have really changed over the last 3 years, and I am running outdoors. And unless it's like really bad weather, right? It's really heavy rain or, really slippery conditions. More than likely, I'm going to try to do my runs outdoors, especially if they're long runs, right? I prefer to do it even with the cold versus doing it on a treadmill these days. So definitely with you on that part.
Yeah. Treadmill's great, and I use that a lot. I used to have one in my house. Now I don't. Now it's like, okay, outside is my option, and on the road is the same thing. It was like I'll do a treadmill there, but that running and traveling is probably one of the best things that you can do. It's like all you really need to do is bring some shorts and your shoes, and you're good to go. So yeah, that took away some excuses for me because I was like, almost every hotel's got a treadmill. I could figure that out. It was a great way to see cities, and map out, where I want to go. And they're like, oh yeah, I'll just run there now. So that was kind of fun too. So I tried to make it fun. I tried to like map out where I was going to be and like, okay, it's going to be an adventure. I'm going to try some things out. I found trails all over the place. I found, routes around cities, and that helped. So maybe try that when you're out in your next city.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, Zach, love this conversation. Love hearing your stories, and again, the ways that running has transformed your life. And kind of as we wind down here, what would be the one thing that you would say to our community to inspire them to run as a way to kind of make a change in their life?
Well, I think it's, like I said, I don't think it necessarily has to be running, but I think some kind of physical activity is needed. I think you kind of get outside being a kid and all that kind of changes. Like, well, I don't really need to run anywhere. And I have people tell me all that all the time. Like, I only run if somebody's chasing me. And you get all those people that say stuff like that. And it's like, okay, well, maybe it's biking, maybe it's something. Just find something. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to change how you think about things. It's going to make you more level headed. It's going to get that excess energy out. It's going to help you sleep better. All those things are just kind of cumulative to your health. And so I would say, do it for your kids, do it for yourself, make a change, do it for 2 weeks and see if it makes a difference. If it doesn't, I'd be surprised. I think, like, for me at least, doing anything for about 30 days, especially health related, it makes a huge impact. And it's like, why would I go back? I feel that way about eating. I feel that way about running. I don't want to go back to feeling that way again. I don't want to go back to feeling like, oh man, I'm out of shape, I'm not healthy, and I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't know what they're going to say or what they're going to find. Like, I want to do the best I can, and that doesn't mean nothing bad will ever happen to you, but I want to improve my chances the best I can.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Zach. How can our community find you and follow your amazing journey online?
Yeah, well, a couple places. I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok. It's the same name for both of them. It's Great Lakes Runner 40. So feel free to follow along. They're public, so happy to add you in as a friend and love for people to follow along. I think it'd be great.
All right. All right. We'll put that information in the show notes to make it easy for our listeners to find and follow you. So once again, Zach, thank you so much for coming on the show. And with that, have a great day.
Thanks so much, Richard. Much appreciated.
That's it for this episode of Inspired to Run podcast. We hope you are inspired to take control of your health and fitness and take it to the next level. Be sure to click the subscribe button to join our community, and also please rate and review. Thanks for listening.